Kalen DeBoer said something on SEC Media Days that made me think he's going to fit right in. He said, I don't remember many of my wins, but I sure do remember all my losses. God, feels so good to have you, Coach.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama. Luke Robinson from the HSA Radio Network. That's me. And Jimmy Stein from Bama Online. That's him. And Jimmy, we want to thank all our everydayers. We want to thank all our newbies. We want to thank everybody who joins Locked On Bama. And what a time to be alive, as we also want to thank FanDuel, because SEC Media Days is going on. And as I just told you in the cold open, Kalen DeBoer got on air today and said, I don't remember all the wins. I dang sure remember my 12 losses. And all I could think was, same, coach. I can remember with like vivid accuracy Alabama's losses over, really even spanning back into the Dubos and Franchione and Shula era. Now, a lot of those run together because that was such a bad time, but especially the Saban era and especially the Stallings era, because that's when I was in school. But I just thought, God, he gets it. Because instead of, I don't want to remember the losses because those were depressing. No, I want to remember the wins and be happy. La, la, la. No, Kalen DeBoer is like, you can tell what he's really saying is the losses have made me fired up to get more of the wins. And I feel like that's how Alabama fans are. I've always said this, and I think you agree with me. We antagonize over our losses sometimes more than we rejoice in our big wins. And you know what? That's why we're the number one team.
Yeah, I think a true competitor, and that's what you need to be successful in this business. You have to be a true competitor. And true competitors, I describe them as those that hate to lose more than they love to win. Everybody loves the winning. The winning is the fun part, the parades and the ticker tape and I'm awesome and more money and more fame and more celebrity. But really the true competitors, the depth of their feeling for losing, the hatred of losing, I hate losing more than I love to win. That's a competitor. That's what I hear when Kalen DeBoer says that.
Nick Saban, Jimmy, I want to cut you off so I can mute you and let you talk. I think I said we antagonize over our losses, and I've been up since 3:30 this morning, so y'all bear with me. I think I should have said we wallow in our own sadness of losses or anguish. I think I said antagonize, and I'm really sorry. And if you caught it and have already called me out on it, please understand that I also caught it. Thank you.
I think Alabama fans, like I say all the time, Nick Saban didn't spoil us. He ruined us. I think a lot of the response to the DeBoer era this fall will no doubt be born of the Saban era. And what I'm bringing up specifically about that is, while I agree 1,000,000% with Luke about us wallowing in our losses, the Saban era has spoiled us to the point that we don't just wallow in losses. We're upset about the way we won. There have been numerous, and when I say numerous discussions on our board at BOL and in these YouTube comments, some fans still upset about how Coach Saban handled the quarterback situation in 2017 between true freshman Tua and sophomore Jalen Hurts. While those folks never acknowledge that Alabama won every game but once and won the national championship that year.
Using both of them in one half each.
As I say all the time, you don't win that national championship without both of them. And Saban, I think, handled it perfectly. And this is why I say he handled it perfectly. There's proof that he did. There's a trophy that proves it was handled perfectly. And we still have fans upset to the point that 7 years later, they're still talking about it. We've won a national championship since then. And they're still talking about that that disaster back in 2017 when they won it all, but some games were closer than they should have been because he played the wrong guy. It's that attitude, frankly, that I worry about in terms of the future going forward, because there's going to be, DeBoer almost said this in his comments sitting with Coach Saban. He almost said it, but stopped himself. But I'll say it for him. There will be losses. There will be losses. It won't go great all the time because it didn't go great all the time for Nick Saban. There will be losses, and how that's handled, we'll see, because I think some will act as if Coach Saban was at Alabama for 17 years and won 17 national titles and never lost a game. When we all know that that's not even close to the reality of the situation. But anyway, I think having DeBoer and Saban on the screen at the same time was surreal today. I mean, we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming, but it was surreal to see it. And I've been saying all year, guys, that it was really going to hit me, Western Kentucky, when on the big screen before the team comes out of the tunnel at the end, and they showed DeBoer walking out of that tunnel with the team, that's when it would hit me. But today was another milestone. I mean, today's got to hit you too, right? I mean, where Greg Sankey introduces the head coach of the Alabama Crimson Tide to the podium, and it's Kalen DeBoer.
Well, first of all, a couple of things. Yes, I'll work latest to furthest. Boy, I'm sorry, y'all. I got on a plane in Houston, Texas this morning at 5:00, and I'm sort of out there right now. But I do want to say we had to talk about DeBoer on the SEC Media Days. I'll tell you, I did think that while DeBoer was up there with Saban, and in between the two of them was Roman Harper and Greg McElroy, I was thinking, if I were an Auburn fan, I might just go home and make a bath, light some candles, just
wasn't a good
have
Auburn
a glass of
segment.
wine, cry, be like, what have we done to deserve 4 Bammers up there at the same time? Not for Alabama media days, for SEC media days. And I don't think they were doing anything that made me think they were all over the top Bammerific. But I just thought it was funny to have those 4 guys. Now, one other thing you say, when you were talking about managing 2 quarterbacks in 2017, how much of a far cry was that? And I can't believe I've never thought of this parallel to 2003, when Alabama also played Georgia, also in the state of Georgia. I was also at that game, and Alabama trotted out there Spencer Pennington, Brandon Avalos, and Brody Crow for one pass, and he almost was disintegrated in one play. He almost just poofed right into the ether because he was hit so hard. And remember, he was already out there with like a medic alert bracelet anyway, because he had always fallen and he had always had trouble getting up because our offensive line always let people kill him. And we juxtaposed those two things, and it's like Saban maybe pulled off the greatest management of 2 good quarterbacks on the same team at the same time in the history of 2 quarterbacks on the same team at the same time ever.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly believe this. You wouldn't have won the 2017 national championship without both Jalen and Tua. Took both of them. And in 2018, Alabama won the SEC championship again. Couldn't have done it without both. Took both guys to do it. And every time now, I will always remember that as an analyst, that analyzes this game and shares my opinion. I'll always remember that. Every year that there's a quarterback controversy from here on out, one of the lines you will hear from me is, hey, as much as it's one guy versus the other, here's a prediction. At some point this year, you'll probably need both. Everyone should root for both because you probably will need both to get through the season and to win all your games. Everybody in the NFL, same way. I mean, I know that teams spend a lot of money and spend a lot of an investment on the number 2 quarterback, but hey, in that league more so than any other, your number 2 needs to be ready to step in and win games. The idea that your starter is going to be healthy for 17 NFL regular season games in the playoffs, to me is, yes, it happens, but you can't assume that as coaches or fans. And in college, now that we're adding these extra games, the number 2 quarterback is a big, big deal. And thankfully, as we get into this Tide team, I think it's a strength for Alabama because I personally think Ty Simpson's ready to step in and not just play well, but win. And having a number 2 quarterback that can win is big. Luke just brought up that 2003 disaster in Athens, and it's just hard to believe that it's the same program today versus what Alabama's situation was then, which started with an injury because Brody Coro was a good player. I mean, Brody was, and both of our opinion, we know this because me and Luke have discussed it off air, but Brody is the best quarterback at Alabama between the Bryant era and the Saban era. Brody is the best Alabama quarterback, 3rd-round draft pick, and a lot of tools. Just didn't have a great offensive line at any point, and not that much help around him. But he's a good player. But once he got hurt, it was just a fall far. It was a fall to the next guy. Hopefully Alabama won't have that situation this year. If Milroe can't play, because this is Milroe's team, but if Milroe can't go because of injury, Ty'll be ready.
Yeah, couple of things, and then we're going to talk about Ryan Williams and Kendrick Law in the next segment. But number one, that 2018 SEC championship game, dare I say, it's my favorite Alabama game of all time. I mean, and we've won national championships, but like when I think of like moments that were bone chilling to me, 2015 national championship, 92 national championship, 92 SEC title, 2018, 2017's in there, but that 2018 where Tua and Jalen are hugging and just, I mean, oh God, I just
Coach Saban practically cried. For Coach Saban, he cried.
He did.
When that game was over, he was so happy for the team and for Jalen Hurts to play the role of hero in that situation. But tell you, the movie, Hollywood wouldn't believe it. They couldn't make the movie.
No, they couldn't. I'll tell you somebody they may make a movie about is Ryan Williams and maybe even Kendrick Law. And Kalen DeBoer brought up those two guys. But I want to tell you about FanDuel. Man, I love some FanDuel. Y'all know I love FanDuel. I'll say it almost every day. I love sports. I love watching them so much that I never want them to stop. But as the playoffs wind down, we get fewer games and the sports aren't sportsing like I want them to. But FanDuel lets me keep the sports going whenever I want them to go. All I have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime I'm in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most of your summer. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball, as you know. So, Jimmy, one thing you brought up, the post-Bryant, pre-Saban all-Bama team, we're going to come up with that. We may do it this weekend. I'm a threat to put Ryan Williams on it, but I'm not.
The fact he wasn't born then is not even a factor.
Yeah, well, the fact that he wasn't born then and the fact that, like, he was recruited by Saban, but then he decommitted, so DeBoer had to get him back. So technically, but he's not in between Saban and Bryant. That's the caveat. But Kalen DeBoer talked about Ryan Williams a little bit. And one thing that he said that just like, again, made me feel like Kalen DeBoer gets it. And he gets me as a fan. I don't know about the rest of y'all. He gets me. He said, Ryan Williams, once he got back on board, he said, I knew how important that was. I'm not reading it verbatim. I just watched it live. I knew how important Ryan Williams was. He said, once he got on board, he was all in. He was like, helping us recruit, doing everything. And if you follow Ryan Williams in any capacity, he's completely gumped out, man. If he doesn't, it's not going to shock me if he doesn't have like one of those license plates trim things with Roll Tide on it. If he doesn't have like a sticker with the Bear Bryant hat, he might even have the picture of Mike Shula leaning against the goalpost with Bear Bryant looking down on him.
You are truly a certified Gump if you have that.
That is hardcore downtown Gump only material.
I've got it, but only someone gave it to me as kind of a joke. Someone gave that to me, like
if you put that up now, I think it's like
it's not up, but I've got it.
It's like it's like being ironic, but now it's lapped back over into almost being cool. It can be up there like a like you're hanging there, baby, like a cat holding on to like the clothesline about to fall. Like that's your motivation.
I'm gonna have to.
I'm never going to be there again.
I might put it. I might lean it up against something as a prop behind me going forward. That'd be great. But Ryan, as basically involved as he's been in the recruiting process for Alabama, putting this class together, the 25 class, he might as well share the GM title with Courtney Morgan. He's like a co-GM. I mean, in terms of, I've said this before. I don't know what the new rules are, but it used to be on that team, you were assigned a player to be their host for the weekend. And that's what was expected of you once you were on the team is, hey, for help us in recruiting one time during recruiting, you could be assigned to, but we're only going to do that to you once. Other than that's your recruiting responsibility. Well, things have changed, but regardless of that, the involvement that the current team has with recruiting is something unlike we saw in the Saban era, in my opinion. Now, I'm not saying they weren't involved. I'm not saying it's gone from 0 to 100. They were involved under Saban, and they cared under Saban, and they did these player panels, the player panels right now that are very popular with prospects' parents. They did that under Saban too. So that's not a DeBoer thing. So players have been involved under Saban, but not to the extent and the enthusiasm level that we see now, with especially, with the face of that being Ryan Williams, who seems to be personally involved in the recruitment of every player that we're trying to sign in the 25 class. Amazing. I just took
Ryan Williams is actually – yes, okay, I'll tell it. Ryan Williams is actually teaching an electric slide class. That's how gump he is.
Hey, somebody had to replace it. I don't think DeBoer is going to do that.
I don't think we need an electric slide backup. Backups are important in every aspect here at Alabama.
What? Well, they're damn. Ryan's doing more than the electric slide. What was it? I think it was a player. Was it Justin Hill that had an IG video that had, while he was dressed in the Alabama stuff, that it seemed like every player in the locker room was dancing to this TikTok or thing he put together, and Ryan was up in the middle of all of it, of course.
Look, we need to the electric slide's about as far as I need to go in pop culture dances. I don't need to talk about the
name another.
You and I have already taken a lot of heat for Krav Maga. Everybody's like, y'all mispronounce it. I'm like, we didn't know it was Israeli till 5 minutes before the show. Y'all give us a break. I worked in a Trump joke. Everybody's like, you don't know how to pronounce Krav Maga. I'm like, I've never heard of Krav Maga. I would have thought that was a word jumble 15 minutes ago. But anyway, the other thing
I know a lot about a little, but I will have to admit my knowledge of the martial arts is quite thin. I'm sorry. I don't know a lot about that.
Let me tell you this. This is the truth, and I want to talk about Kendrick Law for a second. But for those who know me, know my son is at Arizona State, and my son is like, he has Asperger's. We talked about that before. Doesn't mean things are just awful. He went to Flagstaff by himself yesterday just because he wanted to take pictures and do something. He's an interesting kid, but he's sort of on his own. He's kind of a loner, he gets it honest. I like, but he got involved with jiu-jitsu. I didn't know. And I was assuming he was like, doing all this stuff, and he said, why don't you come watch me do jiu-jitsu one time? I was like, all right. So I went to see him this last weekend or whatever when I was there. I was like, what in the world is this? I mean, it is really grappling. And he did it for like 45 straight minutes. They had these like 5-minute sessions where they do it with all these different people. And he jiu-jitsu one dude who is as big as my Morky Poo. And then he jiu-jitsu a dude that was twice as big as me. And I'm not talking about in a fat way. I'm talking about in a muscular way. And I was like, my son's going to get killed. And the next thing you know, Truett had him in such a way that like the guy was having to tap out. And the guy was like exhausted. And I was like, what is happening? Point being, we don't know what you young people are doing. And I don't want to fight any of y'all. So that's all I know. I don't want to Krav Maga you. I don't want to jiu-jitsu you. I don't want to, what was that old shirt we used to wear in the 70s? I know karate and 15 other Chinese words. That's all I know. Don't ask me to do anything else. So
I thought jiu-jitsu were knives or a movie starring Robin Williams and maybe The Rock. I don't know. That's all I know.
There are a lot of other jokes in there. I'm just not using any of them. But, okay, I did want to say this one other thing about Kendrick Law. Kalen DeBoer said, we have Kendrick Law clocked at 23 miles per hour, 23.6 miles per hour. I didn't feel like there were enough follow-up questions to that. Because my follow-up question would have been like, say what now? Because that doesn't even make human sense to me. That's like and considering how much he can press and lift and all these other weightlifting terms that I also don't know about, it's like Kendrick Law is an ant, but an ant that can run much faster than you ever thought an ant could run.
He's literally, I mean, the speed limit on campus is 25 miles an hour. I mean, he's almost speeding.
He should do, you know what I would love to see? Remember in The Office when one day they had a speed limit sign, like a speed limit detector up? And you know how they put those up sometimes in the street when a cop can't be there just so you know you're going too fast and it like flashes? And Michael Scott went out there and he did it, and it was like, 10 miles an hour. And the next guy did it, and it was like 11. And Mike was like, well, yours was wind assisted. And then Mike got in behind a car, and it caught the car first. And he was like, 35. That's the new record. That's impossible. That's what we should do for Kendrick Law. Like, he's running down the street, and they have this speed limit detector. That'd be great. All right, Jimmy, when we come back, let's talk about what Kalen DeBoer had to say about Jalen Milroe and a few other things that he had to say. Also want to be sure everybody goes and checks out Locked On Sports Today, because if you're watching Fox Sports or ESPN or any of these others and everybody's just yelling all the time, you don't want to watch that. You want to go watch Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel program for you every day to bring the biggest stories without all the screaming. Jimmy and I screamed some today, so don't use that as an example. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which is your team every day. We love it. Go check out Locked On Sports Day. Or I'll tell you something else, dude. Check out Locked On SEC. Chris Gordy's doing a masterful job over there.
Good dude.
Yeah.
Knows his stuff.
Jalen Milroe. DeBoer talked about him a little bit. He seems to have all the confidence in the world in him. And, I think the comparisons are pretty natural. In fact, I believe Greg McElroy brought it up. Like, not comparing person for person Penix to Milroe, but he just kept saying Michael Penix, right? And I just think that people are putting that together too quickly. Milroe ain't Penix. In fact,
they're different.
I mean, they both happen to be African-American quarterbacks, but Milroe is much bigger. Penix is much more accurate. Milroe is much faster. And Penix probably has better decision-making. So, I mean, they each have their own attributes. But, I mean, they're pretty different otherwise. So, I'm not looking for a Michael Penix type of year. I'm looking for what people will be referring to as a Jalen Milroe type of year, which is going to be even better than last year.
Yeah, one thing that gets to me a little bit and infuriates me, and I know some of y'all enjoy when I'm infuriated, but, the Penix to Milroe comparison. Let's remember this about Michael Penix, who, by the way, I'm a fan, and I'm rooting for him to do well in Atlanta, who never should have drafted him, and that's another story. But I root for Michael Penix, sure. The Milroe to Penix comp misses this fact. Last season, Milroe was in his first year as a starter. Penix was in his 6th year of playing college football. 6th year. His 5th year as a starter. So if you want to compare Milroe to Penix, imagine how good Jalen Milroe might be in 2026 or 2027. Give Milroe starting every game until then, and then compare the two. Because I know a lot of people out there say, yeah, Milroe's not Penix. Penix was a grown pro in his 6th year. Milroe was just in his 1st year. And that stuff matters a lot.
And also the coaching continuity.
Oh, sure. Yeah, Milroe's switching every year. Milroe had Bill O'Brien 2 years ago. He had Tommy Rees this past year. Now he's got Nick Sheridan. So 3 in 3 years, whereas most of Penix's career, he at least had Kalen DeBoer involved, either as OC at Indiana, and then he had Nick Sheridan and Ryan Grubb involved with him all the way through, and then, of course, DeBoer Washington. But I'm just saying, when people say Penix has better command of the offense, Penix is more accurate. Yeah, Penix was 26 years old. He'd been starting. He's not 26, But Penix had been starting. He literally was a college quarterback for 6 years, starting for all of it. Milroe has just a small percentage of experience that Penix has. Now, Milroe will be a more experienced, I would call Milroe an experienced college quarterback at this point.
Yeah.
But he wasn't last year. And I think if you're going to compare Milroe to Penix, then look at Milroe this season, upcoming season, comparing him to Penix, while still realizing that Penix still has 2 additional years of experience added on top. So I don't like the comp for that reason alone, but I do see some similarities. When Penix ran a 4.5 at the combine, it really shocked me because Penix didn't run very much under DeBoer. And that, I think we probably should talk about that more in a future show, Luke, because it's like, wait a minute, you had a quarterback that ran in the 4.5s, and it was like news to me. I thought Penix would run like a 4.8 or a 4.9. I had no idea what that was.
DeBoer did mention that, and DeBoer did say, we didn't run Penix much. And now I believe some of it was Penix did have some injury history, right? I mean, not like catastrophic, but he had some injury history.
He had tore his ACL, I believe.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say it was like every year Penix was. He wasn't Brody Croyle, where every year he was hurt, or Tua. Every year he was hurt. He wasn't like that. But he did mention. He said, and this was again. I thought something DeBoer is trying to do. DeBoer is walking a fine line with this so brilliantly about the way he's saying things. He said, we had to put some things. I think that's what McElroy was talking about. Yeah, Penix didn't run much. And he said, yeah, but we put some quarterback keeper stuff in for Texas because we thought that would work. And obviously it did. They beat them and went on to the national championship game. So my point is, DeBoer is not like inflexible on this. But at the same time, he didn't want to be like, hey, Penix couldn't run. That's why we didn't do it. He was very diplomatic about the way he said it. And again, I should get the actual quote and say it. I just think DeBoer has handled this as well as you can handle a transition between the two. And then to have, I don't want to say Jalen Milroe is a polarizing quarterback, because I think the vast majority of Bama fans are like you and I, and they want him to be the guy. They want him to succeed, and that's it. There is a faction of the fan base that wants Ty, and I get it. Because Ty is talented, I understand, and they're worried about Jalen's mistakes. I'm not worried about those anymore. I'm not. And I'm also now, in hindsight, as Pat and I said, hindsight's 50-50. When I look back and see the bad snaps and things like that, I realize, those moments probably affected some of Jalen's ability to make accurate passes, ability to make the accurate read. Because if your first thought is, oh God, where's this snap going to go? You're saying, and instead of, hey, which receiver is open, it changes the way you play the game. But I just think that DeBoer was great today. I hate to be so effusive with praise because I want to tamp down. Jimmy, you taught me that word. I want to tamp down my expectations, and tamp down may actually be redundant. I just want to tamp my expectations. But regardless, I'm really excited after today. We've got a lot more to talk about coming up these next few days, and we'll probably do our own predictions maybe for tomorrow's show, because I know all the SEC media stuff will be out. We'll definitely critique that because that's where we're Vikings.
I'm still working on it, but I might have a very, very surprising SEC prediction. Might surprise people. Most people are going to go chalk. And Nick Saban went chalk, by the way, with his Georgia-Texas pick. That's what most everyone has picked is Georgia-Texas. It's not.
Who are you going to pick? Michigan State and Mississippi?
Now, how about that?
That'd be surprising.
It would be a real surprise to pick someone from outside the league. And hey, some years I'd have just as much chance of being right. No, I'm not going to say who. I'm not going to give it away. But I will say it's going to be surprising. And normally I'm a chalk guy. I mean, normally I don't like being outrageous. I'd rather be right. And but
let's have our picks tomorrow.
This is how I feel about it. So picks tomorrow.
All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. Thank you guys so much. Go check out Locked On Sports Day. Go check out Locked On SEC. Keep subscribing. We're creeping up on 11,000. My goal is to get to 11,000 before the season starts on YouTube. So y'all help us do that, okay? We're like 150 away. Anybody know 150 people out there? I'd appreciate it. All right, that's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow morning. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.